Hey folks, if you're wondering what the heck are you looking at, believe me, I once felt just as confused as you. This is Hylix, a surreal and abstract game that is difficult to talk about without making jokes regarding taking substances. I'd still call it a big acid trip, but I'm a clean person who hasn't had such first-hand experiences to say that. Instead, I like sipping good scotch and rum, but, well, they've never caused me pastel-colored hallucinations. Yet. Well, Hylix is an RPG Maker game made by the visionary clay artist Mason Lindroth. And in fact, almost all of the game's graphics is made of digitalized pictures of physical models, which are, to say the least, very bizarre in their forms and animations. My first contact with Hylix was in 2020, when I watched this trailer for the sequel, which, damn, left me speechless. I mean, look at this stuff, it's beautiful. By the way, I discovered that it was a direct sequel to the first game, which went into my wishlist, but I played it only now, also inspired by having played the hilarious Felvidec. That game is indeed very inspired by Hylix. Now, describing the plot of this game is complicated, because it's something really out of the box. See, Hylix is not a game that wants to make real sense, because its dialogues are mostly randomly generated and seem like metaphors with a certain poetic touch. Although here and there are some NPCs which say something concrete. From what I understood from the prologue, which is indeed cryptic and narrated by this mysterious narrator, up there, on the moon, Gibby reigns from his throne, responsible for, I don't know, whatever evil deeds, and thus my protagonist's story begins. And that's all. I guess the end goal is to find a way how to arrive there and beat up this guy. Okay, let's start the first act by activating this lever. Here's Wayne, the scurious chap of very few words, with a distinctive moon-shaped head and black leather clothes, is the protagonist who embarks on this journey to the moon to defeat Gibby for whatever reasons. To start, let's go upstairs and take the warm burrito from the toilet. Yes, from the toilet. And the toilet paper, which will be our first miserable armor. Back downstairs, let's activate the obligatory crystal, then take his life savings, watch the television to learn a useful healing spell, and also interact with the cat, because why not, it's cute. At its base, Hylix is a very standard RPG with some interesting mechanics. For example, there's no leveling. The stats like the health points and the attack power are increased by equipment, and some special consumables that give permanent bonuses. And besides, this game has its own strange terminology. We have attributes called Flesh, Will, and Mightiness, which are the classic HPs, MPs, and the physical attack power respectively. And also others like Cooking and Jollity. Whatever. Anyway, the game can be pretty confusing, because it doesn't provide much clues about what to do or where to go next. But in truth, the progression of the adventure is pretty simple, due to the small number of locations and mimics the typical evolutionary scheme of a classic JRPG. We start on foot, then continue by sea with a boat, and end up flying to unreachable places using the airship during the endgame. And in the meantime, we visit very strange places, full of bizarre beings, obtain useful items, solve simple puzzles, and fight a lot. The first fights against multiple enemies will be quite deadly, but there's no game over. Instead, Wayne and his party will go to the afterlife, a sort of parallel dimension like a limbo. From here, we can return to the world of the living, first by selecting an activated crystal, which acts as the respawn point to its location, and then enter the portal. Furthermore, after dying 3 times, we'll get access to the executive balcony, where are located some useful items including this bestial axe, which deals high damage. It's clearly a joke, but very helpful. The battles in Hylix are classic turn-based, and the overall difficulty is not that high. Of course, initially Wayne won't do much, but after obtaining the Bestial Axe and recruiting the first companion, it will decrease drastically. Wayne's optional companions are some interesting fellows, each with their own special ability and a weird name. The first we meet is Dedus Muln, a big horned archaeologist at the ruins above the city. To recruit him, we need to find a relic called the Paper Cup, which location is hinted by using the machine inside his tent. But do not worry, it's very easy to find. Dedus Muln's special ability consists in the usage of the water dispensers scattered around the world. To use a dispenser, we need a spare paper cup. The use consumes both, and gives a permanent bonus of 25 will points to the active party members. That means the unrecruited characters will not receive the boost, so use it wisely. Next, alone in her house, we meet Somsnosa. She seems quite sad, and asks Wayne to retrieve her magic gloves from her basement, now invested by the Wandering Skulls, a type of monster that insta-kills Wayne's group on contact. Her special ability allows her to increase her mightiness by killing bugs found in many places. She becomes very powerful. The last companion is the warrior Pongorma, who lives sealed inside a vault that requires to solve a simple puzzle to be opened. Pongorma challenges Wayne's group into an easy fight, at the end of which he offers his strength to his quest. His ability permits to destroy the deadly Wandering Skulls, and, aside that, he also possesses a powerful magic that depletes the 25% of an enemy's remaining HPs and comes very handy against the bosses. The spells in Hylix, which are called gestures, are very peculiar. Well, like everything else, but they deserve to be discussed. See, each hero has his own native spell, like Wayne's one that puts enemies to sleep, but the rest of the spells must be learned from watching the television scattered here and there. Every television has its own shape and gesture to learn, and every time we acquire a new companion, we'll have to bring him to the screen to learn it. The beauty of Hylix also lies in the battle animations. The gestures and consumptions of items are very extravagant, and the backgrounds of the battles even more. But then the standard attack is this simple finger snapping, and I don't know the reason of this choice. By the way, the best animation is the freaking dynamite. Just watch it. Ludicrous. Another interesting thing is that what is killed remains dead, so no respawning of enemies, we'll just find their remains. At the end of battles, we'll acquire an item called Meat, which can be put in the grinder in the afterlife to acquire extra flesh points, and... Hey, wait! Isn't this... cannibalism? I mean, seriously. Whatever. Just like the water dispensers, the grinded meat increases the flesh points of recruited characters, therefore do not consume it on an incomplete group. Hylix catapults the player into its bizarre world, this quirky archipelago that has many interesting traits and secrets. First of all, it seems to be set in a post-human world. In fact, we find the remains of a perhaps extinct civilization, televisions, paper cups, water dispensers, strange devices, a freaking car, and at the same time there's little information about the current society that inhabits it. For example, where we meet Dedus Muln, we fight the Concaltis, who don't want to let anyone escape from the mount. But who are really these guys? And who do they worship? Gibby, perhaps? And then there's Pongorma, who introduces himself as the greatest of the Dread Knights of Thorn, and also says that he has been waiting ages in the vault for someone to fight him. Again, who are these knights? Do they still exist somewhere? And also, what are these giant corpses underground? This game plays a lot with the player's imagination, giving him little information to theorize about, and it's very fascinating in its own way. In the end, when I saw the credits after about 4 hours of the first playthrough, I admit that... how can I put it? that I didn't understand shit about what happened, and I felt very confused. But it was a nice trip, literally. And speaking of extras, in this game there's not much to discover and obtain, apart from the ultimate gesture, which requires 3 tokens from 3 not-so-hidden sages, then find all the paper cups and water dispensers, and killing all the available enemies, including this large optional boss. See, almost all the necessary equipment can be bought from shops, and I advise you to immediately buy the Bleak Cellophane, which prevents the blind status that is very annoying. Besides, the cash in this game is initially limited, because the enemies we kill to obtain it remain dead, but near the end there's a way to acquire a very huge amount of money to spend on whatever we want, but I found it a very unbalanced solution for the endgame. In addition to everything, Hylix is also pleasant to listen to. The sound effects are interesting, and the soundtrack composed by Mason Lindroth himself is simple but perfect for the style of the game. So, in the end, do I recommend this Hylix? Hell yes. It may last very little, even less than 3 hours, but it's also very cheap and worth every cent, and I can't wait to play the sequel, which I know expands on many ideas from the first, and it's the main reason I played it. That said, please try Hylix. It's a kind of different experience. As always, a warm thanks to all viewers, and see you in the next entry.